The nature of it is it's pretty exhilarating. Today I'm here, as has been mentioned, with great official respect to the work of this committee, and I'm here to. It's my privilege to introduce a devoted champion of working families, a respected expert on financial services, and a lifelong public servant, Jaime Lizarraga. He has served in my office, the office of the House Speaker and Leader, for nearly 15 years, and for a long time as the highest.
New stimulus checks worth up to $500 can begin going out to low-income households in just a few weeks. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi are under some pressure to increase monthly benefits for all the current recipients, and Missouri residents who file income taxes would actually be eligible for a $500 tax credit under a new Republican proposal the Democrats are currently negotiating. The proposal by the Republican House budget leader would set aside $1 billion in state funding for the tax credits. Married couples filing jointly would get $1,000 under the plan, and top House Republicans said that passing a tax break would be the main priority, as lawmakers have their mid-May deadline to finalize the legislation. Pelosi and their top House members said in a statement that Republicans don't support the idea of spending every available dollar to increase the size of government, but instead believe individual people in Missouri are best decision makers for how to spend their tax dollars. If U.S. Democrats criticize the measure as a tax break that wouldn't help the state's poorest, Democrats propose setting aside $100 million to give $1,000 checks to poor families who have struggled with housing or food insecurity. St. Louis Democratic representative also said the Republican proposal is similar to his previous pitch for stimulus checks, but has the inverse impact. President Biden and Democrats are facing pressure to boost federal crisis-related unemployment benefits for millions of people as the crisis just continues to surge and job growth slows down. There have been a total of 3 federal jobless aid programs, and the programs that were first put into place by the former president lapsed months ago. At the time, an estimated 7.5 million unemployed workers lost all their extra benefits. And according to estimates from the Century Foundation, an additional 3 million people stopped receiving a $300 weekly boost to their unemployment benefits that were provided by their state. Economists and advocates are continuing to push Democrats and Republicans to pass legislation that will boost unemployment benefits. On May 2nd, NBC News reported that Republican lawmakers in Iowa voted to reduce the number of weeks that jobless Iowans can receive unemployment benefits from 26 weeks to 16. Also, the legislation will force those receiving benefits to settle for lower-paying jobs quickly instead of being allowed to take the time to pursue work that pays at least as well as their previous positions. Opponents say this legislation will harm both workers and businesses, as those who are forced to accept jobs that they don't want will increase turnover by quickly leaving their new employers in pursuit of something better. Back in February, Republican lawmakers in Kentucky voted to slash the number of weeks that their jobless constituents can receive benefits from 26 weeks to 24, but that number would drop even further, by more than half to just 12 weeks, when the state's unemployment rate is lower than 4.5%, as it is now. Next door to Kentucky is West Virginia, where lawmakers are pursuing a nearly identical plan to cut jobless benefits. But the legislation there is even more severe. If the law passes, West Virginia would have the weakest unemployment protections in the country. It will reduce the time that jobless West Virginians can receive benefits from 26 weeks to 20 weeks.
Senior advisor. Every single day, his brilliant strategic mind, wide-ranging expertise, and unending compassion have been central to much of the work of the Congress. And if confirmed as a commissioner, he will be an invaluable asset to the Securities and Exchange Commission and its independent work. One of the most important roles of the SEC is to secure that the policies we enact in Congress protect consumers in their everyday lives. Jaime is uniquely positioned to succeed in this task, understanding how to transform legislation into implementation, as was mentioned by Senator Tester, having served on the House Financial Services Committee, the Treasury Department, and as staffer at the SEC. As Speaker, it's been my privilege to witness firsthand his masterful leadership. Because of his immense talent and vast knowledge, his portfolio has grown more expansive in the Speaker's office as he played an integral role in crafting and enacting some of the most consequential economic legislation in a generation. There are many things to say about him, but one of them was the Troubled Asset Relief Program that we worked in a bipartisan way with the Bush administration on, the Dodd-Frank reforms, the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission, restructuring Puerto Rico's debt and reforming our immigration system are among other things, and multiple relief packages that we worked in large measure in a bipartisan way to advance. And so with that, I again just say that Jaime is known and adored by all as a family man. He comes here today strengthened and inspired by the love of his family, the son of immigrants from Mexico, as you mentioned, Ms. Senator Tester. He's never forgotten his parents' hard work and sacrifices to give him and his sister a brighter future. His story is the story of the American dream. His parents, Esther and Enrique, and his sister, Maria Esther, are beaming with pride as they watch this hearing from home in California. And today, Jaime is joined this morning by his loving wife of 22.
This is huge news. There's actually new inflation relief that has been approved. Many people will be receiving a $300 stimulus payment this month, but some action is going to be needed to take. But some action has to be taken by Congress in order for you to receive the stimulus check. Now, rebates worth up to $300 will be going out to more than 600,000 Delaware taxpayers next month under an inflation relief plan declared the General Assembly. The rebate, which lawmakers approved after first weighing whether to institute a gas tax holiday, will be in the form of actual stimulus checks mailed to people who filed a tax return in 2021 for the previous year's earnings. The cost is around $186 million to the state, which currently has a surplus of about $1 billion for the fiscal year that ends June 30th. In addition to the rebate for taxpayers, the state will also send around $300 checks to some 168,000 adult residents who did not file a return last year. The state hopes to identify those recipients through public records like driver's license. Now, checks for those recipients will be going out after July 1st, once lawmakers appropriate the $50 million cost in the state budget, which usually approved at the end of June. The state has a detailed timeline of when checks will be mailed, and the governor signed a bill just minutes after the Senate passed it. Delaware Governor told reporters, "My hope is that these direct payments will provide some measure of relief for Delaware families who are dealing with higher costs at the grocery store and at the gas pump. These direct payments to Delaware families are part of a broader, responsible budget proposal." Now, CNN released a poll this week that shows the president repeated efforts to highlight undeniably strong aspects of the economy's post-crisis rebound, and to offset blame for its bad spots are not working. The main culprit is inflation, a force the White House initially underestimated and has failed to tame. It has been decades since Americans experienced this cycle of spiraling costs for basic goods and services. That shock is twinned with rising gasoline prices that also hurt family budgets across the country. The result is a looming political disaster for Democrats, with voters in a disgruntled mood ahead of midterm elections that were already historically thought tough for a first-term president. Federal Chairman Jerome Powell said during a news conference, "I'd like to take this opportunity to speak directly to the American people. Inflation is much too high, and we understand the hardship it's causing. We're moving expeditiously to bring it down," he says. The Federal Reserve this week says that it's raising interest rates by 0.5 percentage point to get a handle on the